Always trust.
We ask the questions.
What is needed in the world?
Is that going to
be? It is the world's largest democracy. Over 814 million eligible voters in India head into the ballot box in a general election spread over several weeks, beginning April 7. For the past 10 years, a coalition government called the United Progressive Alliance, or UPA, has been in power, led by the Congress Party and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. The main opposition party, the Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP, a right-wing Hindu nationalist party led by Narendra Modi. A controversial man himself, Modi is accused by his opponents of failing to protect Muslim citizens in his home state of Gujarat when he was chief minister there during communal riots in 2002. The current government's been credited with transforming the economy and opening up India's markets to foreign investment in the airline, pharmaceutical and auto industries. But there are problems here. Over half the population still survive on less than $1 a day. The cabinet has responded with ambitious schemes to guarantee a right to food and employment. There's been an upsurge in violence by left-wing Maoists, or Nakshals as they're known, in the east of the country. They've killed scores of security personnel and political leaders. It's a battle for hearts and minds that state and regional governments are still not winning. And at the heart of the election campaign, women's rights and corruption, two issues that are dominating the country's news media these days. After companies in the telecommunications and energy sector won favourable contracts with the government, there were investigations, even prosecutions of government officials as a result. But perhaps the most emotional of all issues, high-profile rape cases that have brought into focus women's security. The gang rape and death of a medical student in the nation's capital in 2012 shook the country and forced politicians to tighten the laws on rape. But is the death penalty a deterrent? We'll explore all these issues as the man at the centre of them all, India's Minister of Law and Justice, Kapil Sibal, talks to Al Jazeera.
Kapil Sibal, Minister for Law and Justice, as well as Communications and Information Technology. Thank you for talking to Al Jazeera. Are you and your party battle ready now for the general election?
Absolutely, without any doubt.
What are your main concerns?
Our main concerns are basically the use of the electronic media and the way in which the electronic media is projecting an individual and showing it to be somewhat larger than life. And I think this kind of propaganda, if it emerges from news channels, is somewhat disconcerting.
But the plethora of media and the number of television channels is really, you might say, down to your successive governments, as well as perhaps the BJP government in the 90s, where you opened up the airwaves.
Well, that's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
It's a good thing for opening up, but the media must also follow certain norms. I mean, there is the concept of equitable distribution of news. The media has now become a platform for opinion making rather than a platform for disseminating news. And that's a matter of great concern.
How do you rate your chances, the party's chances, the Congress Party's chances in the election?
Well, it's difficult for me to say because I'm really concentrating on my constituency and I really don't have a clear picture of what's going to happen around the country.
But you have a general consensus about how the Congress Party is perceived. Certainly in the last 2 years, you've had quite a rough ride with lots of issues that we'll discuss in a moment. But, you know, your reputation as a party has been battered and bruised for several reasons.
That is true. That is true. And I think it's partly because, again, of the media, because they never projected what we've done over the last 10 years. And they've only projected spurious figures which have no relationship to reality, and then castigated the Congress Party as corrupt.
Well, let's move on then to the man who's leading your election campaign, Rahul Gandhi. And everybody you talk to in the Congress Party is saying he's the right man to be leading the election. Why?
Well, quite frankly, he is leading the campaign, and Mrs. Gandhi categorically stated in our AICC session that took place in Delhi, that the Congress Legislative Party, parliamentary party, will actually choose who the Prime Minister will be in case we're in a position to form the government. And that's been the practice of the Congress Party ever since we were in power.
Individuals are not supposed to be bigger than the party, but you can't help the fact that we're talking about the Gandhi dynasty, and you've known the Gandhi family for a long time. Is the Congress Party a party that allows free speech, or is it just a one-man show?
Quite frankly, I can assure you that we have more democracy in the Congress Party than in any other party. Because there's never been an occasion in the last 10 years when I have not spoken out my mind, both to the leadership directly and otherwise in public, and I have never been castigated. So quite frankly, I think this is again a charge which is without any basis at all. If at all there is a party which is larger, which projects a leader which is larger than the party, that's Narendra Modi in the BJP. And this is really nothing, our party is nothing to do with dynastic politics. Quite frankly, it's something to do with the party's firm conviction that the Gandhi family has led this country ever since independence.
Let's move on to some of the issues that are being discussed across the country, and let's just begin with corruption. How do you assess corruption in modern India?
Well, there are two levels of corruption. One is corruption which is attributed to acts and misdeeds and acts of omission and commission of people in power, especially of ministers. And then, of course, there is societal corruption. There is corruption at the bureaucratic level, when government work has to be done and the poor citizen has to pay for everything that is to be done. Now, ever since the economy was liberalized, private capital has started playing a very important role in our economy. And in this process, everybody wants to get ahead. And so there is corruption. So corruption is a real issue. Corruption is a national issue, and it concerns all of us.
It's a real issue that's affected your party specifically, and if we look at certain things like the 2G spectrum scenario...
Where's the corruption there?
Well, A. Raja was a minister in your
one
cabinet.
second, I'm talking about Congress Party. Let's not.
But those issues have actually tainted
not
the
at
government.
all. I don't agree with you. I think what has tainted this government is the constant refrain of the media 24/7.
You can't blame the media.
I am blaming the media because the fact of the matter is that nobody in the Congress Party had anything to do with any corruption that took place by a minister in an individual capacity against whom corruption has not yet been proved. And you're already calling him corrupt.
No, but there have been allegations of corrupt
Correct.
practices.
Allegations of corruption.
He was arrested. He's still being investigated.
That's true. Allegations of corruption doesn't mean that corruption is proved. I suppose the law of this country is you're innocent till you're proved guilty.
Absolutely.
And you are already stating that he is guilty.
No, but
without his being given the opportunity to prove that he is.
No. He's had plenty of opportunity, and there's been one investigation after another that continues to put doubt as to what his position was.
I'm not disputing that,
No.
but all I'm saying
But
is...
it taints your party. They're an alliance partner. They were part of the UPA government. It taints who you are in terms of the party.
I'm not disputing that. I am not disputing the fact that there is corruption. All I said to you was there is not a single Congress minister in the last 10 years of UPA 1 and UPA 2 who has either been charged or against whom any proceedings of corruption are pending. And I'm sorry to say that the Congress Party is being termed as corrupt. The media should have also 24/7 talked about the corruption that is endemic in the BJP, instead of only talking about Mr. Raja and tainting the Congress Party in the process. Look at the facts. 7 ministers of the BJP in Karnataka are in jail for corruption. You've given me an opportunity to explain. I'm sure you'll run it, right? These things should be run 24/7 like they run Narendra Modi 24/7.
Let's move to the economy. India is showing a trend of increased unemployment,
Yes.
though it's by 0.1% over the last 3 years, to something like 3.8% projected in 2014. Yet the under 30s graduates, it's nearly 13%.
Yes.
What sort of conversations have been happening behind closed doors in cabinet or between ministers
frankly,
about handling the unemployment issue and about young people and their aspirations?
Absolutely. This is a very serious issue. And in fact, we've been trying to grapple with it for a long time. And the government of India, rather UPA too, has launched a national mission for skill development. Because unless we revamp our education system and ensure that that kids who actually move out of school and move out of university have skills through which they can be employed, because remember, the economy is expanding in different ways, whether it's the automobile sector or the pharma sector or the IT sector. What we have today is jobs available but nobody to fill them. So we identified 22 missions, and that's our National Skill Mission Program, and we've set up a National Skill Development Corporation. This has been done by the Congress Party, by the UPA too already. I tried to revamp the education system by actually bringing some skill development programs in it, and that also is working fairly well at the moment.
How do you deal then with those parts of the community whose children might not go to higher education and that have a difficulty in getting access to school places? Because school places are always very sought after at every level.
When I became the Minister for HRD in 2009, the gross enrollment ratio of this country was 12.4%. So I committed that by 2020, I will increase this gross enrollment ratio to 30%. And I'm happy to tell you that as we talk today, the gross enrollment ratio has moved up to 19%, and we're only in 2014.
When we talk about the economy and development, we also have to talk about inflation, and inflation has also been a major factor in the way that India has progressed or developed, and it's nearly doubled in the last 10 years, partly to global pressures. Where do you see the areas, or how do you see inflation being reduced?
Well, basically, inflation is in fruits, vegetables, so everyday consumables, right? That's really the cause for inflation. And unless we're able to invest in agriculture and develop cold chains, it's going to be difficult for us to deal with inflation, which is why we wanted multi-brand retail to come into this country, right? We wanted those cold chains to develop, and unfortunately the BJP opposed us in a very big way. So we have to have scientific and we need to increase our per capita growth in agriculture. Today, as we talk, inflation is 4%, right? When inflation goes up to 9%, the Congress Party is blamed, and when it goes down to 4%, there's not a word as to whether we've done a good job or not.
And again, you mentioned FDI, and for our international viewers, foreign direct investment is what you're talking about. The Congress Party and the UPA 2 government have tried to push foreign direct investment. You've succeeded in the airline industry. You've succeeded in telecoms, telecommunications. The one area, as you mentioned, is in the supermarket area, the retail sector. Why do you think that the small trader, if that's the best way of putting it, is so adamant against this scenario?
I think it's partly politics, and partly the small trader feels that he may be gobbled up by the huge investments, not realizing that very few people have the capacity in this country to go to supermarkets which will be built 20 kilometers away with the kind of communications, with the kind of transportation they have. I mean, nobody is going to go on a scooter 20 kilometers to buy stuff and come back. So there's always going to be a market for the small trader because the ordinary consumer doesn't have the capacity to go 20, 30 kilometers to a supermarket and buy stuff. And the trader will always survive. But unfortunately, it's a lot to do with politics, and it's a lot to do with the fear of the unknown. This is what happened when we joined the WTO. It was the fear of the unknown. This is what happened when we signed up in the pharmaceutical sector. It was the fear of the unknown. We feared that the pharmaceutical companies, global companies, are going to take over our companies. That never happened. So I think it's the fear of the unknown. It's a lot to do with politics.
Why is it then that the opposition, we'll say the BJP, have been so adamant that foreign direct investment is not the right direction for India to be going?
Well, they
into?
have a 19th century mindset on everything. So it's not surprising that they think that way.
Let's move to security. And one of the big issues over the last 2 years was the change in the law that brought in the death penalty for gross violations against women, in one particular case, rape. How much did the rape of that medical student on the bus in Delhi in December 2012 resonate within the cabinet, within the government corridors and within the cabinet?
Oh, it resonated, absolutely. Nirbhaya, you're talking about Nirbhaya. It resonated. And I think the result of that was that we brought in a very stringent law, which is now in place. But as I it's something that I've always maintained, that rape is not something, violence against women is not something that can be dealt with law alone. Law can ultimately punish those who violate women, but ultimately it's the mindset that must change. And the mindset of the male in India, if you really look at their relationship with women, is not entirely reasonable towards women. And I think unless we have a social transformation and a reformation, I don't think that this violence will stop. Even after Nirbhaya and even after the law, you still have cases of rapes happening every other day.
Indeed, I was going to mention in March we saw 5 men convicted over the rape of 2 women in Mumbai. It seems that even though the law is there and it's supposed to act as a deterrent, how long do you think it's going to take? How long do you think it's going to take the mindset of society to change?
You see, mindsets of society change. Don't change very easily, and we've seen this across the world. It's not just something that's happening in India. You've seen this happening in all parts of the world. If you take Japan, take the Middle East, take the United States of America, very difficult to change mindsets. So what we need is a true social reformation.
Is there anything else that can be done in terms of tightening the law to protect women, in your opinion?
No. Laws cannot protect women. Laws can only punish the wrongdoer. Protection is something that will come through change of mindset and through technology, perhaps. And we are finding technology solutions for safety of women. But how do you deal with violence within the 4 corners of the household?
Well, let's move on to...
That's again a very serious issue.
Indeed it is. Let's move on to another form of security issue that is important to India. And 2 years ago, the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh said that the Naxals were the largest, or the left-wing insurgency, was the biggest threat to India. And in recent days, we've seen yet another attack which has killed 11 security personnel in the east of the country, in the state of Chhattisgarh. Over 200 people killed in 2013 in that area, along the Red Corridor, as it's called. Would any government be losing the battle?
No, I don't think so. Any government will lose the battle. I think what we need to do is to ensure that there is collaboration between the central government as well as state governments. Unfortunately, whenever we try and put in place a system, a structure through which we can collaborate with state governments so that necessary intelligent inputs can be given and actually investigation can be proceeded with, and the line of control should be with an entity which has an overall understanding of security issues. But whenever such a structure is sought to be put in place, the BJP always opposes it, and then of course they raise the bogey that it's an attack against federalism, and therefore the state governments are not willing to collaborate with the central government on any of these issues. And if you don't have this kind of collaboration and you don't put an appropriate structure in place, you're going to have tragedies like this.
As we come towards the election campaign, polling will begin very shortly. Your security services have arrested individuals who they believe are associated with Indian Mujahideen in Rajasthan.
But they've just been released.
I wanted to ask you about what you believe that the threat is from external factors.
No, I'm afraid here the police the police and the investigating agencies always use, or not always, but many a time use Muslim youth and name them and arrest them without any basis and without any evidence. And this is one excellent example in question, that they said that they were involved with the Indian Mujahideen, and then they released them, realizing that there was no evidence against them because there was a protest. And they said that they arrested them from Patna, and actually they were arrested from their houses. Now, I think that we must stand up to this kind of this kind of unwanted, arbitrary action against Muslim youth in this country. And I feel very, 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 very disturbed by this attitude of investigating agencies and the police personnel.
Do you think there is a worrying trend of communalism and a split in society based on faith or caste difference?
Very worrying. And this is really what this election is all about. This election is to prevent that mindset to come to power, which has always fueled controversy and communal tension in this country. And the man who is leading that campaign has a lot to answer for. Has a lot to answer for in the years to come, for what happened in Gujarat in 2002. And I'm afraid till such time as justice is done, the people of this country will not accept him as Prime Minister of India.
There are other communities, the Sikh community, that want justice as well from
Sure.
post-1984 riots.
There's a difference, though. They should
What
get
is the
justice.
difference?
We are fully, and this is something that we've said, the Congress Party has always said, that we're very, very sorry for what happened. Mrs. Gandhi has regretted what happened. The Prime Minister has apologized for what happened. But the fact of the matter is there is a difference. Here, the administration was at the forefront of it, and 25 policemen are in jail because of that, because of fake encounters and because of their role in these riots. Their Minister of State, who is now in charge of UP, he is being proceeded against criminally for having participated in this. Now, I won't say that he is guilty because he is innocent till he is proved guilty, right? So I don't say. But the fact of the matter is, this never happened in 1984. This was a case where the administration was encouraging violence against innocent people who had nothing to do.
A court in Gujarat had
Yes.
given Mr. Modi a clean...
That doesn't mean courts are right. Courts are wrong. Supreme Court is many a times gives a wrong verdict.
What is Mr. Modi, for the Congress Party then, what is Mr. Modi guilty of?
It is not for me to decide what he is guilty of. Right? That's not my job. That's the job of the investigator. And we should have an arm's length investigator where those who are investigating have nothing to do with the state of Gujarat.
Is that the best
Even
way forward?
the SIT that was set up, it was those very investigating officers under whose eye all this happened, who were the investigators.
Do you
How
think
could anybody expect justice from an SIT like that?
if an investigation on the Gujarat riots of 2002 were conducted by an agency that was not related to the state of Gujarat, an independent agency, could a fair and transparent conclusion be achieved?
I want to ask only one question. From 2002 to 2012, why haven't the telephone records of what happened during that period been placed before the public? Just that. The communications between police officers and the CM's office. Those records have vanished. In fact, all this delay is to the advantage of those who might be guilty. I don't know whether they are or not. All that evidence is lost. Individuals were not allowed to file FIRs because the state itself filed an FIR. So individuals who were naming people who they saw were not included because they said the state is investigating. It is about justice, which is the cornerstone of our constitution, which is the foundation of civil society. It's nothing to do with the state, it's nothing to do with a party, it's something to do with justice. Without justice, there can never be peace and amity. And without peace and amity, there can never be democracy. It's the future of democracy and the future of India that is at stake.
Well, there for the moment we will leave it. Kapil Sibal,
Thank you.
Minister for Law and Justice, thank you for talking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you, Sohail.